In a world where science fiction is dominated by Star Wars and Star Trek, two series which hold a near and dear place in my heart as a mega nerd, lesser series can find it difficult to compete for the public's time, being often compared to the dominant series for better or for worse, and whether or not it's a fair comparison. Just, they're the big things everybody knows, so they compare whatever smaller thing to. In this video, though, we'll be ignoring those two franchises and focusing instead on some science fiction series with less popular appeal and popularity, but which are still very good, and which do their own thing, which separates them from the two main series. And yes, the decision to not mention either series after the first sentence of this video was deliberate. We will not be limiting ourselves to just television shows in this video, but we'll be discussing what I think are some of the best sci-fi entries for everything from video games, well, actually the list doesn't include video games because halfway through writing I decided that might be a different video, to books, to anything in between that's not a television show, movie, or book. There's nothing, because video games are being their own video. So there's probably something for everyone, unless you're a gamer, in which case there will be another video, maybe in the future. Drop a comment if you want that. If I miss any series that you enjoy, just note that this is just my own list, and I don't consider it to be absolutely definitive. There's tons of very, very good series out there and universes. But feel free to mention anything I did miss and why you love it in a comment below. Basically, shotgun effect, try to cover a little bit of everything, so there will be stuff missed, especially video games, which will be a different thing. Maybe. Airing around the same time as Deep Space Nine, this is the first entry by the way, and pioneering CGI as a means of providing visuals, Babylon 5 is probably my favorite non-Trek sci-fi series from a writing perspective. Beating out stiff composition from The Expanse, Battlestar Galactica, both the original show and the reboot, and they have a very good game, and Andromeda, which is by Gene Roddenberry, and they're all very good. There's also The Orville, which isn't here, but it's a very good show. And they do look better from a visual perspective than Babylon 5, as it has problems. But these all suffer from some writing issues in later seasons, in my opinion at least, which kind of hold them back. Although that BSG ending, huh? Anyway, B5, as it is often shortened to, is a science fiction series set in the not-too-distant future, revolving around the station Babylon 5, don't ask about Babylon 1, 2, 3, and 4, which was built to serve as something of a meeting point for all the races of the galaxy to discuss their differences and reach common understanding without having to resort to violence. During the run of the show, several issues are brought up and dealt with, ranging from corruption in the government, the rise of totalitarian regimes, religion, cultural clashes, personal ambition, and cultural stagnation. And they're all brought up and treated in a really well-done way, in my subjective opinion. Obviously, this video can't go into too much depth due to lack of time, so any summaries will probably be pretty short, unfortunately. But if you are curious, there are plenty of videos here on YouTube discussing all about the series talked about here by people that are qualified to actually judge cinema and story and writing. I'm just some guy that likes ships talking about shows that I also like, most of which have ships. Well, not only shows, pretty much anything but video games. Maybe another video. And on from B5, which is often called a Deep Space Nine ripoff, we come to the Honorverse, a show, well, book series often called Horatio Hornblower in Space. As an aside, I prefer the Aubrey Maturin series to Hornblower when I need a Napoleonic naval fiction fix, but that's neither here nor there. In case you have not heard of this series, it's basically naval combat from the Napoleonic Wars and their French Revolution. They're different, but one feeds into the other. But in space! The series follows the career of Honor Harrington from her first command up to her leading major battles in climactic galaxy-encompassing warfare, so pretty standard stuff, honestly. What sets the Honorverse apart in my mind is the attention to detail in the world building. Essentially everything about the universe is explained in incredible, often excruciating, pages-long detail. how faster-than-light propulsion works, the deck orientation of their starships, effectiveness of weapons and countermeasure systems, and the entire history of the setting and the complicated politics involved is basically covered, described, and rehashed in every book. Which, if you really like details, is definitely something to give a go. But if you just want, like, big explosions, maybe don't. You've been warned. As said, this series is mostly confined to literature, with an extensive series of books including tie-in spin-offs and some representation elsewhere in the form of a tabletop game, and a video game which got mixed reviews, but that I have not played, so don't want to get into here and can't find regardless. It's from like 2014, so it's probably long out of date. The series does have some issues, with underlying commentary on capitalist versus socialist economic and political systems, ignoring several issues with the former and inventing issues with the latter. Pretty standard post-Cold War American viewpoints, really, and an aforementioned tendency to focus on the weeds of the setting, which gets in the way of the story oftentimes and some other problems, and I don't particularly care for the latter entries in the mainline books. But it's still a very well-done series overall, which I can recommend if you're looking to get into a new book series to read during your daily commute, upcoming travels, what have you. Beware if you get the audiobook version on Audible at least. The narrator refers to Manticore and the Manticorans as the Manticoran, which is a choice that I would not have made, but anyway, it's well done, well worth a read. There's plenty of artwork floating around of the ship kind. We're not going to talk about other stuff which probably exists, but we're not going to get into that kind of artwork. When I say art, I mean like of the universe, not other stuff. But yeah, good idea. I'm faffing about it a little bit. It's a bit of a pretentious choice after, the Honorverse, which is also literature, so therefore pretentious and But I really do like the works of Jules Verne, the best thing to come out of France since the place was known as Gaul. That's facts right there. If you don't know, Jules Verne was a French science fiction author from the late 19th and very early 20th century who wrote a large body of science fiction works covering topics as varied as space travel, travels deep below the ground, and even submarines. Along the way, making commentary on the society of his day and basing most of what he wrote about the science, as it was known, in his day. His work to me captures the optimism and hope for the future which was common at the time, portraying the world as a wondrous place with much to explore and see, with science providing a means of achieving new things and solving problems. When a madman wasn't at the controls, that is, which is a reoccurring theme of his stories. His stuff isn't for everyone, and can feel a bit dated compared to more modern works, but I still really enjoy picking up one of his books every now and then. Also the Journey 2 series, Journey to the Center of the Earth with Brendan Fraser, and Journey to the Mysterious Island with The Rock. Awesome. Very, very just goofy-ish movies, maybe? They're not great. They're not great, but they're, I like them. And, they're from good books. As far as adaptations go, they're very meh, but I like them because, I grew up playing the video game that came with Journey to the Center of the Earth on the TV. It was not great in hindsight, but it was, if you're 5, it's good. Next up, we have a zany and out there science fiction show from the same general era as Star Trek. Swiss Family Robinson in Space. I mean Lost in Space, though I realize as I'm writing this that my joke is literally the plot of the series. They aren't Swiss, but they are named Robinson, and they're lost in space, like the Robinsons were lost on Earth, and they're on a planet that they can't escape, like the Swiss Family Robinson was lost on an island that they couldn't get off. I feel like an idiot for not catching this, and I feel like I'm about 50 or 60 years past the point where this was a revolutionary thought. I know that there is a new Netflix series by the same name, which is alright from what I remember. I don't think I watched it all. And a very bad late 90s or early 2000s film by the same name, but we're talking about the original show here, as you can tell from the artwork. What about this dated and goofy science fiction serial earns it a place on this list? Well, I mean, it's the fact that it's goofy and dated. If you enjoy the original series for its quirkiness and charm and just general cheese, then this show is probably right up your alley. The show is always fairly low stakes in its episodes. Much like Gilligan's Island, you know full well they will never leave the planet, and that no one will face any serious harm because they have to be in the next episode. But the stories and plots developed are still fun, and the show, while looking very much like a 1960s sci-fi show, is still really pretty looking, in my opinion. And especially when it goes into color, it's very nice. Basically the same plot as The Three Amigos, one of the funniest movies ever made. Galaxy Quest is a cult classic Star Trek spoof which asks the question, what if the crew of the Enterprise, meaning the actors which play them, not the characters themselves, were abducted by aliens who saw the show and thought it was real, and believed that they could solve their problems? With hilarious results as actors try to deal with high-stakes galactic diplomacy and warfare. The show's plot is good, acting superb, and visuals really well done. Ridley from Aliens and Dwight from The Office appear in the same movie as Tim the Toolman Taylor, Adrian Monk, and the terrorist from Die Hard. I mean, need I say more? There's also that one girl that was in like every 2000s movie in some capacity. You know the one if you know who I'm talking about. I can't think of her name though, but she's everywhere. And, you know, it's a good movie. Yeah. Well, that's the video. What did you think of my choices? I tried to cover a little bit of everything, and as mentioned at the start, no video games were included. They'll get a separate list in the future, probably. But, from the sort of TV show, movie, books perspective, let's say, do you think that I missed out any good ones? Let me know in a comment below. Also, I know Firefly was not mentioned. If I see anybody mention Firefly, I will know that you did not watch to this point in the video, and I will be, well, I'll understand, because, you know, this is probably a pretty long video. But, do not put Firefly. I'm aware Firefly is fantastic, but I didn't mention it here for, I don't know why I didn't mention it. Should have mentioned it. Anyway. Yeah, so maybe it's too mainstream. I don't know, for a show that had 13 episodes, too mainstream. Anyway. So yeah, do let me know what was missed. If you like this kind of content, sort of more unhinged random, I guess, you can support me on Patreon, tell me what you like. You can take part in votes and all of that stuff. Feel free to. I mean, that's really it, I think. Yeah, basically, so that's really all I have, I was afraid to say. I mean, bye, I guess.